Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
Today we have a double feature in line with really one of the greats in the Hall of Fame.
I think so.
Something like Tank Girl and Schindler's List, I think.
Something like that.
We're bordering on that territory.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the names responsible for that double feature are myself,
Right.
Eric Ingram, and Michael Armagoddamn motherfucking Kester.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have some explaining to do, maybe a little bit.
We do. I think the first step of explaining would be revealing the films.
Yes. So there's two movies. The first one is 12 Angry Men.
Okay.
And the second one is naturally what you
First thing that comes to mind when you think 12 Angry Men.
Predators, I think, is probably... No, that's not it at all. That is the movie we're doing. Probably the last thing that might come to your mind, but not on this goddamn show. You know, these are two films that have obvious, stark differences, but probably have a lot more in common than you might think.
Oh, yeah.
And we're hoping here, and this is ultimately my idea, and you can kind of let me know what you think about this.
Okay.
I'm hoping we do this once in a while. We trick people into watching movies by putting one film they really like and then promising them that they would like this other film, even if that's not true.
I think we do that a lot of the time. I know that a lot of the time when we put films in order on the show, we always put the one everybody's seen first to try to trick people into having to watch the second one.
I don't know if that's even the case this time. I think it's
it's not this time.
I think it's a kind of a mix. I think some people have seen 12 Angry Men, some people have seen Predators, but we have a very, very high number of people who have not seen both of those movies. And we wanted to do 12 Angry Men for quite a bit of time, and we tried to pair it with other things. And to be honest with you, I thought all of our potential pairs made too much sense.
Yeah.
It always seemed like one of those things where we kind of go, is this too obvious?
Right.
Can we really do 12 Angry Men and something blah blah crime, something with juries, something?
Yeah.
And it just seems too obvious.
And too little to really cover because we would just say the same thing twice.
So we have some chapters if you decide you don't want to see both of the movies. There is kind of a heavy theme of, I don't know, some kind of team-centric idea that we're going to delve into a little bit in both of the movies. But if we can't talk you into seeing 12 Angry Men, a great film, you can chapter over to Predators. And had you not seen the other Predator films, or at least the first one, I guess, or you just don't believe that Predators is a great film,
which it is,
you can then chapter to the end of the show. Now, really quick, before we get into the first movie, what's going on with all this Predator stuff?
We covered all the Predator films when we did Killapalooza 19. And
it wasn't 19. We're not quite there yet.
Okay. Well,
oh, man, and we're going to have a Killapalooza next time.
That's true.
Oh, people are going to be chaptering away right now.
But we covered all the Predator movies. Suffice to say, Predator is an alien that hunts people. We're not going to go into detail.
That's really all you need. I think you could see the new Predator movie. And it wouldn't
completely independent.
I don't think it would harm anything in the original one whatsoever. But if you'd rather just cheat, as so many people do, and just listen to our show as if it's some kind of substitute for watching movies, which, believe you me, it is not, then you could go back to the Alien vs. Predator Killapalooza, which did not actually become a slasher franchise until, the last 3 movies of those, of that whole set. So, 12 Angry Men is a movie that should probably get paired with The Man from Earth and not with Predators.
So, yeah, absolutely.
But goddamn it, it's going with Predators right now.
Yeah.
This is a movie that explores something that's very interesting to me, which is jury duty.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Henry Fonda.
Which is Henry Fonda.
That's mine.
Conducting jury duty.
Perfect.
Yes. You've never been on a jury, right?
Me. I have not.
You've never voted, have you?
That's not true. I have voted.
You have voted. I don't know if voting in juries, if that is actually
I think
how you get selected.
When you sign up for selective
service
service is when...
Selective service?
Yeah, when you turn 18, you have to sign up for something about being in the army.
Oh, yeah, right. That, too. We have no idea how you get on a jury. If you have facts about that...
Have you served on a jury?
I haven't,
Okay.
No.
Just want to make sure that was covered.
Doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. We want facts, not you heard one time that if you vote, you'll get picked for a jury. But a lot of people, especially in the United States... they fear jury duty. They hate jury duty. That's kind of the old joke, how do you get out of jury duty? I guess the joke would be literally any sentence that follows that.
Right.
And you can say just about anything to get out of jury duty. Many of the things we proclaim all the time, there is no God,
sure,
or perhaps science-based skepticism, requiring facts, being pacifist, not believing in the death penalty. I mean, all of these things.
Pretty much Double Feature stands to reason as to why we probably will never serve on a jury.
I host
At least
Double
not in the
Feature
next 10 years.
Would be. I
host, also I listen to Double Feature.
I listen to Double Feature, right. So all things to get you out of a jury. However, I'm not one of those people who, oh my God, what could I say to get out of a jury? I would love to serve on a jury.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Now, granted, it's not really that John Waters jury
right.
that I'm sure he fantasizes about. It's probably mostly traffic cases and boring.
Yeah.
I don't know if juries don't even see traffic cases, do they?
I don't know.
You know
really
what I'm talking about, though.
I've never
stuff.
been to court. I've never been in a courtroom.
Oh, really?
Never.
I have been in a courtroom. It's scary and a story for another time.
Is that when we get to Too Fast, Too Furious?
Yeah, no, it was just one cop and an angry judge, and that was it.
One angry judge.
Can you imagine me in a courtroom?
Nope.
I mean, I don't even look like... I would never get a fucking chance.
Oddly enough, you never see these characters in a courtroom either.
No, you don't. Thank you for transitioning back on topic. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. That's exactly where I wanted to go.
I mean, you see it in the beginning. They file out of a courtroom.
Yeah, they all kind of give the suspect one last glance. They give us a glance at the suspect, the accused, the defendant. Thank you. And so we're looking completely at their debates over whether or not this man is guilty. We get no trial, and that helps keep us glued to the screen. You know what I mean? It's not a matter of we want to go in knowing as much as these guys, because we don't. We didn't hear the trial. Instead, we're learning about the trial from them. I think this is purely a suspense technique, or at least a containment kind of technique to say, here's the story we're telling.
I think it's definitely the latter.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're talking about the drama between these 12 men, and that's where it's going to be. It's going to be in that room. So conceptually, it's there too. But my immediate go-to when you're doing something like this is to say, oh, so we would be in the position of these characters and we would get all of the information they have or something like that. But that's the complete opposite of what we're doing here. It's a totally different tactic. Instead, we're going into a room where the only information that matters is... with the exception of this character who brings in the knife. That's Juror 8, right?
Right. Played by Henry Fonda.
Right. So with the exception of him and that bit there is no new information really introduced in this room.
Right.
In fact, when that scene comes up, it almost, at least to me, it feels a little strange.
Yeah, well, and it does, but first off, something about that scene that took me aback is that I didn't know you were allowed to, walk around the defendant's neighborhood and gather your own evidence.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's not something you can do.
Also, bringing a switchblade into a courtroom.
Right. Well, apparently even buying switchblades were illegal.
Yeah.
At that point.
I believe still illegal.
I think it depends on where you live.
Sure. Well, Chicago, I just assume everything is illegal.
3 inches or spring-loaded are the two no-nos. So he brings that in, but also it really doesn't influence anybody's opinion in the room,
right?
Except for maybe the audience.
Yeah, that's not the point where people start bailing on the guilty verdict.
Right. It's a moment where Juror 8 gets to go, look, maybe something's possible that we didn't initially think was even a possibility.
Yeah, that causes you to be a lot more humble about your position. Right. I think that's really what that's set up
it
to
opens your mind to the possibility that, because honestly, if I were to be in a room, think of it outside of a film standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. You're in a room with 12 men who have just sat through court proceedings.
Right.
And 11 of them vote guilty. My initial reaction is he's probably guilty.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to side with, because they have all the information, right?
Right, exactly.
They have all the facts. We have no facts. They sit down and take a preliminary vote, and they all say guilty.
Right.
And I have some kind of inkling to believe the man who says not guilty. And I mean, not just because I'm aware that the film is going to take me on an adventure. There's going to be an arc here, and I'm looking for the arc.
But because you're a humanist and you like to believe that nobody does anything wrong.
Yeah. So
exactly.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Every time I hear somebody's guilty of something, I'm just like, that didn't happen.
Yep.
That person didn't do that.
I fully agree with you.
Another thing, raise your hand, humanist, totally bad juror.
Yep.
Get out of here. I mean, I just don't.
Basically, because we would want to walk in there thinking, well, we're going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt.
Well, we've seen Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Right.
Remember talking about that? I mean, having a bunch of papers you're waving around saying, I confess, does not necessarily make you a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a spoiler, by the way. I know everybody just freaked out. Totally, if you haven't seen that movie, not a spoiler in the least.
If you have seen that movie, still not a spoiler.
Completely new information. I'm amazed when you're introduced to these jurors, how fast you can both love and hate the characters.
Yeah, well, I think, who's that, juror number 3?
Yeah, number 3.
The
That's
one
exactly
that
who I was thinking
you fell
of.
in love with immediately because the first thing out of his mouth is, let's talk about the facts.
Yeah,
I'm
just
only
the
paying
facts.
attention to the facts.
Right.
But then he immediately becomes a total asshole.
He starts going off about kids these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really the number one way to look like an asshat. Just, man, when I was young, everybody called their dad sir. Like, fuck you, buddy. What the fuck is this guy's problem? And so now, nowadays, all humanity has crumbled. Everything is worthy of the cynicism you're giving it. People are all shit, and the future of America is, here's the reality of the situation. The future of America, created by today's youth, will be so much fucking better than the future that you and I have created.
That's true.
Because our future here, our present,
Hard
what we're
drives will
living
be
in,
smaller.
I thank you. Hard drives will be smaller. Hard drives will probably be non-existent.
Yep.
Websites still hosted in the cloud. But our present here is better than that of the generation before us.
That's true.
And the generation before that.
Absolutely.
I am a firm believer that the world is consistently
Progressing.
progressing. It's getting constantly
Sure.
better over time. Perfect example, Sidney Lumet makes this film, right? This
Sure.
film comes out, great film. Sidney Lumet, we'll talk about him as a director another time. Too much stuff to talk
Great.
about here. But when this film came out, you could not do the sort of thing the show might do in, I don't know, creating a Google search like 12 Angry Men Naked or 12 Angry Men, what is it? 12 Angry Men with Hot Chicks?
12 Angry Men with Hot Chicks.
12 Angry Men Bikinis. You could not Google that and perhaps find a short that someone had made recreating scenes from 12 Angry Men using just women in bikinis.
Uh-huh.
That did not exist 50
No,
years ago.
it didn't.
Exists now. World constantly better. Case closed. Proved. Done. Anyways.
So we've already got out of the way the belligerently angry guy who's got some personal vendetta against kids these days.
Fuck that guy.
And Peter Fonda's playing Davis, who is juror number 8, who is the dissenter. But we're already still in a room with 10 other dudes.
Yeah.
So what the film does is it proceeds to give them all basic kind of character stereo outlines. The leader guy,
Uh-huh.
little Weasley man,
Yeah.
man with glasses.
You mean man with hamster sweat. is
Right,
what
hamster
we're-
sweat. And then we have grew up in hard times,
Mhm.
blue collar worker,
Yeah.
just wants to see baseball.
Oh, God.
Then we're around to Peter Fonda,
Uh-huh.
old man with a heart,
You're doing great at this. I am so... You're going to get through all 12?
bigoted racist, or just hater of low-income people.
Okay, can we pause for just a second on
Yes.
that? So we're having a little bit of a dispute here.
Right.
We can't tell if he's racist or if he just doesn't like people who grew up in the slums.
Probably supposed to mean maybe both.
Okay, totally fine. Moving on.
European watchmaker,
All right, great.
salesman who flip-flops.
Yeah.
That is our 12 men.
Those are the 12. They are here to solve a puzzle. Their past only important when it informs our case, informs their decision on our case. And so then the movie becomes about creating tension in this single room. And that can be, that can go either way. It can be a difficult thing to do, trying to keep people entertained while not moving, changing your set at all. When we were talking about Sideways,
Right.
just back on the other episode, we noticed while we were watching the film how they would move from scene to scene to scene for seemingly no reason.
Right.
Especially when they're in her house.
Right,
They're just
just-
like, let's go in this room.
Right.
Now we'll go in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll go in this room.
More
So no one-
conversations
no
over
one gets
wine.
bored about wine. But here we're stuck in one room. So this will either naturally make the audience feel claustrophobic if you're doing a couple
Sure.
key things right, or it'll just bore the shit out of everybody and they'll feel the need to leave.
Right.
Thankfully it does the first one.
Right.
I mean, I would hope for everybody.
Yeah,
That's
well, I
pretty
think
universal.
what happens is it does the first one to the audience and the second one to the men in the room.
Sure, right. Well, so you have the heat that starts amping up in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The rain, I mean, I don't know if you noticed the sound on the rain.
Yep.
And there's at least 2 points where I noticed it almost drowns out what people are saying. The rain
Right.
is so loud I can barely concentrate on what's going on. And then the camera work, I mean, the camera moving in for these extreme close-ups.
Yeah.
You know, occasionally it will cut to somebody in that close-up,
Uh-huh.
but more frequently, and I found this specifically in the beginning, the camera will move in on that person. It will kind of back them in a corner a little bit,
Right.
at least visually. And by the time you get to the end, you're getting extreme close-ups from one person to another. It's just, you know, they're shot from kind of right above the eyebrows down to a little bit below their collar.
Mm-hmm.
And you get in that close and you go from one person to another back and forth. It's it's sort of an unusual way to shoot a scene. You don't usually get so many back and forth extreme close-ups for such a prolonged period of time. It really makes you feel closed in.
Yeah, and it looks strange. It took me a while to get used to it. I think particularly because some of the actors are really weird, not seeing their hand motions and the rest of their range of motion. Particularly juror number 9. I'm just going to come out and say that.
Yeah. Well, they you know, they use everybody's faces to tell the stories.
But I think, at the same time, you need these people's close-ups because you need to see, for example, juror number 4, you need to see his mind change when they talk about wearing glasses to bed.
Sure.
You need to see the discomfort in juror 12's eyes when he goes back to guilty and then back to not guilty because he really just doesn't know. But at least he's going on doesn't know, not definitely innocent.
Right. Yeah, they also look weird because they light them a little strangely. It's light directly on their faces rather than just kind of coming from a source and lighting, you know, different people in different ways. I think the movie's just trying to get you to focus on those faces so much. So if the extreme close-up is literally, let's say it's like their mid-forehead to their chin, somewhere around there or below their collar, the light will literally be from right above their eyebrows to right, you know, before their chin kind of ends. It's just on their face. It's specifically a single light pointed at a person's face.
Well, it's the same lighting scheme that Mel Brooks used when we watched Young Frankenstein.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
To make it look like it was an old 30s film.
Right.
And this whole dilemma takes place in one room. They go to the bathroom.
Right.
Okay, so we can't say one room because we'll get an angry email.
Sure, right.
And it just, the shots get tighter and people get sweatier. The man who doesn't sweat begins to sweat.
Right,
But by the time juror number 3 breaks down in sobs, before the camera cuts away from him, they have knocked on the door, they've delivered the verdict of not guilty, and they get to walk out into what I assume is a very cool, rainy afternoon.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. You definitely get that feeling coming out of there.
Breathing.
Because, I mean, it's the first time you get an expansive shot.
Right.
It's the first time you're not zoomed in on someone's face.
It's the first time you see the 12 men and you can't figure out which one is which.
Right. So, you know, you're in this wide shot, there's room to breathe. And I think rarely has a film accomplished this so well. You just get this sense of freedom that is, I mean, it's honestly really unbelievable. So this is one of those movies a lot of people might watch in high school just to learn more about the legal system or, you know, how that branch of the government operates.
Right. Apparently a lot of people have. I'm not one of those people.
They point out a lot of the shortcomings of the legal system and a lot of the a lot of the things that honestly would be important if you were to ever serve on a jury.
Something like the task of a court-appointed lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whether or not they're going to do a good job just because they resent being there or because they're not interested in the case.
Well, yeah, that's a great point they bring up is what if the lawyer is just bad?
Yeah.
And that's what the jury is there for. You know, the lawyer is a kind of facilitator of the facts.
Right.
They're going to bring out these pieces of information they think is important for the jury. The jury needs to then comb through that information rather than just going, well, this is the story I was told. Do I believe it or not? Is the man guilty? Instead, they can carefully maneuver through the different facts they've been presented and try and piece together a story for themselves. In that way, I guess they are doing a little bit of that, what we think of as detective work.
It's post-detective work.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of an assembly of facts that have already been brought out. And then you have to reassemble them to make sure that they actually fit together.
It's the end of the Scooby-Doo mystery, where somehow we stumbled upon a bunch of clues we weren't really looking for, and now we know who did it.
And whether or not they did it.
So it's utilizing that skill set. Another thing they talk about that I really, really love is, right in the beginning, the severity of the crime being more powerful than the quality of evidence or even the likelihood of guilt. You know, they talk about how this kid is a murderer. and how bad that makes him and how they shouldn't even give him, a fair evaluation of,
Right.
Of his case.
Basically bring him in and dump him into the electric chair.
Yeah, right. Don't even give him the favor of taking a preliminary vote. What does it matter? We know he's guilty. Let's all just say he's guilty and go home. And so often, especially when you're dealing with things like rape, cases of rape or child molestation. I mean, if you're accused of child molestation in modern times, you might as well have been accused of being a witch, right? Or being a communist.
Well,
How
yeah,
do
I
you
would
even
say
defend
definitely
yourself
more
from
like
that?
being a communist, because people who were accused of being a witch were 100% innocent 100% of the time.
Okay, sure.
Whereas child molesters probably not 100% innocent 100% of the time.
I completely agree with you. Yeah, as long as it's some percentage, it doesn't even matter. What I'm getting at is simply that as soon as that claim is raised,
Right.
everybody thinks
Your life
that
is
that
ruined.
person is scum.
Back when we did Look, except for the fact that was a different case.
Sure, right. I think the most despicable thing, though, is easily how impatient Juror 7 is, especially. I mean, everybody's a little impatient, but that fucking 7th juror, he just does not stop. He, you mentioned him. He has a ball game he has to get to?
He's got a ball game. He's got a pair of baseball tickets burning a hole in his pocket.
He has places to be. He doesn't want his time to be wasted. You and I have complained on this show before about being busy people.
Yes.
We have other projects. We're trying to do things. Still trying to fucking figure out Final Cut 10. No time. Very frustrating. However, get your goddamn priorities in line. Man's life hanging in the balance. Resting in your hands. The ball game. Now, look, I realize TV wasn't really prevalent back when this film was made.
Right.
And people couldn't just go home and turn on the tube and watch the game. And they didn't all have TiVos, right?
Right.
However, seriously, a fucking dude's life. I feel like these are the people that should be weeded out of jury selection.
Well, especially with baseball, where when it comes down to it, you can look at a sheet of paper at the score and it doesn't matter what actually happened within the game.
Sure. Sure.
And we have this guy who I call it from the beginning, right? I see him walk in, I see he's eager to get out, and in my head I go, as soon as not guilty has the majority, he's going to switch.
So that's a concern with a jury. How long that deliberation is going to take. Jury fatigue is obviously another big thing.
A hung jury.
Yeah, exactly that. But they also talk about, I think it's Juror 11 that kind of raises the idea of beyond a reasonable doubt, which Juror 8 reiterates later.
Yeah.
When I was first learning about the American legal system, that was the biggest kind of shock to me.
Yeah.
Is learning that, all right, you're going to convict somebody of murder. You have to have an entire jury agree beyond a reasonable doubt that this man is guilty of murder.
Sure, it's the back end to innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly. Unless everybody decides this man is guilty, they have no reason to doubt that beyond a reasonable reason, then he can't be found guilty.
Right.
So one dissenting man can really, I mean, that's the huge takeaway from this movie. It's the entire plot of this movie.
Yeah.
It's the really the premise of the movie. 12 Angry Men happens really because of that consensus, but the thing that sort of brings the movie's arc all the way to the end is beyond a reasonable doubt. They are creating things that go beyond reasonable doubts.
Sure.
They're basically asking the question, not do you think he's guilty or do you think he's innocent, but is there a possibility
that he didn't do it?
That he didn't do it, right. And if there is a possibility he didn't do it, not let's prove he didn't do it, but if there is a possibility he didn't do it,
he's not guilty.
Then you have to vote not guilty. You just have to. That's how the system has been set up. As they're breaking down these different reasons, the older man, I think he's Juror 9, he talks about a person's need to contribute. And, we've mentioned on the show before the how unreliable eyewitness testimony is.
Yeah.
Also, I think you do see this from time to time, how somebody just wants to be a part of something. They want to have some evidence for you. I mean, you probably see that fairly commonly, when investigating cases like this. People just want to be in on the excitement.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's painted in it's painted in almost a negative picture here, but I like to think of it as people just want to help.
Sure, certainly.
Unfortunately, they're hurting by lying.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes the best way to help is to just not have seen anything.
Yeah, I mean, they need to feel necessary, but it's also just they want to help out. Something bad happened and they want to help. And sometimes that can, go to the point of them making themselves believe something.
Right.
They go over something, over and over in their mind, saying, did I hear this? Could it have been this? It was definitely this. Okay,
Sure.
now I know it's this. And they become convinced of it, and then they go deliver that, to whoever's investigating this. We see this in skepticism all the time, right? People who come forward with some kind of evidence for something or something to... they basically want to contribute. So they find themselves believing things that don't have any, factual kind of footing. I'm thinking really specifically about conspiracy cases, but I suppose that goes to, really every piece in the realm of skepticism. But when we're talking about something like Loose Change, I don't think anybody in Loose Change really has... a cynical sort of... They're not trying to like make money off their DVDs or anything. Maybe that's happening, but I feel like it's more they think they know the truth.
Right.
They've started down this conspiracy kind of path.
They feel a responsibility to at least voice whatever it is they think is the case.
Absolutely.
Subscribing to conspiracy theories, another thing that should throw you off of a jury case.
That's probably true. Predators, I suppose, then would be a movie that you would pair with Cube, but we kind of ruined that as well.
We already used Man from Earth and Cube in, I believe, same year? No, 2 different years.
So you're falling from the sky, you get your main character crashing into the ground, and then...
That's where you show your title card.
Fucking predators. Predators, plural. Awesome. It's those goddamn Rodriguez openings, right? Or is it a Rodriguez opening?
So I don't want to say a rift because it sounds like we're arguing, and we're certainly not arguing. But we have 2 differing schools of thought on Predators.
I think we may both believe the 2 different schools of thought. I think that's...
And the thing is that Robert Rodriguez produced Predators.
Right.
We know he wrote Predators back in like 1994.
Sure. I think that's the exact year he wrote it. It was right around Desperado.
Right. But it's directed by Nimrod Antal, and I'm inclined to give the director full credit because that's kind of just how I operate. That's what I would do if somebody else were to have produced and written a Rodriguez movie.
Sure.
I would say Robert Rodriguez made that film.
Right.
From Dusk Till Dawn, perfect example.
Sure.
And there is no evidence to the contrary, so there is no reasonable doubt here.
Sure, okay.
But neither of us are sure what kind of a hand Robert Rodriguez played in producing this film. Honestly, I've never even seen the director. That could be a pseudonym.
Yeah, right. Right, it certainly could. I've seen a couple interviews with him. I'm pretty sure he's a real guy.
Okay.
Although, Rodriguez and his CG magic. So I don't want to get conspiratorial on this movie. And I'm gonna probably agree with you. Director directed the movie. That's totally fine. But here's the thing. Robert Rodriguez fucking wrote this movie.
Yeah.
We've all known that it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
Everybody's aware that there was a Predator script floating around that Rodriguez wrote at some point. Now, he doesn't get credit for this in the movie's official credits.
Right.
He doesn't even have a written by Rodriguez
original
uncredited
story by...
Yeah, right. Well, that's because they have to give the original story to the people who actually made Predator.
Right.
So he's spoken openly in the public that he wrote this. There's 2 other people credited for writing it, and I'm sure they did a lot of work on it. Mm-hmm. I do not mean to discredit them in the least.
Well, you have to keep in mind that the difference between 1994 and 2010, there's a lot that you would need to change just in the kinds of things that just won't work anymore.
Sure.
And the fact that instead of having a guy that looks like Danny Trejo,
right,
you can just hire Danny Trejo.
Yeah, that's viable now. You also have to add that AA-12 in your in your
something
script.
that didn't exist in 1994.
Yeah, I think everybody's seen this video, right?
Yeah, I've seen it.
So there's
so that's everyone.
There's in this room it certainly is. The AA-12 is this automatic shotgun, which the video's been around for 3 or 4 years. Uh-huh. It's on YouTube. You can take a look at it. But it's an automatic shotgun. Right. That's all that needs to be said about it. It almost looks like a Tommy gun, though. It has that that drum on the bottom of it. Yeah, so it'll shoot, an 8-shell magazine or whatever, but you can get this 30-something round drum that goes in the bottom, and it automatically fires. It's a pretty insanely terrifying weapon. Yeah. That and the fact that so it'll do buckshot, right? But it'll also do it'll do the slugs we talked about during Terminator. Uh-huh. the things that are probably not actually slugs, but James Cameron just doesn't know what a shotgun firing looks like.
Right.
But in addition to flares, and what are the things that police shoot at people to kill them, but they're supposed to be non-lethal?
Rubber bullets?
Rubber bullets, yeah,
Okay.
those. It'll also shoot this thing, which I love the name of it. It's called Frag 12.
Uh-huh.
Now, you've seen the picture of Frag 12. How would
Yeah.
you describe this?
Frag 12, it looks like something developed by Marvel Comics. Maybe something from the Iron Man movies. It looks like a tiny little nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
But that could fit in a shotgun.
So what does it do?
Blows the fuck up.
It's a tiny nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a grenade.
Yeah.
But it's got these little kind of fins on the back.
Yeah.
It looks terrifying. It looks fucking terrifying. Anyways, these are all new things. But to get back to Rodriguez for a minute.
Uh-huh.
So he's credited as producer. He's credited as doing the dubbing and sound, re-recording artist or whatever it is. And credited as the visual effects executive producer in charge of that stuff.
Totally buy all that. It's filmed in Texas, so that's not too far of a stretch.
Right, over half of it filmed in Texas. So they could get
out
that
of the movie.
get that amazing tax credit, right? We didn't get a chance to talk about that either. I'm just going to keep getting off the subject.
That's fine.
Because this is all just amazing stuff. I meant to mention it on the year end, and I just didn't think about it. There was a story in the news, probably fucking like 7 months ago now or something. I saw it, actually, it was on Rachel Maddow's show, which despite disagreeing with about 50% of what she says, I still watch all the time. Really dig that show. And she brought up the story about Robert Rodriguez, which was kind of strange. And this law that was passed in Texas where there were these huge tax breaks for people who filmed in Texas. I suspect that Robert Rodriguez wrote the fucking law himself, because when you think shoots in Texas, you think Robert Rodriguez.
Right.
And so there was this big press event they held at Troublemaker Studios with the dude who wrote the bill or whatever. And it turns out the first movie that was actually made under that bill to get the tax break was Machete, which features a corrupt Texas politician
shooting immigrants.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure how things fared for that bill, but I thought that was funny, one of the first ones being taken advantage of, and I imagine that Predators was the same way.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So there was all this stuff that came out as they were producing this, which, to be honest, I didn't pay a lot of attention to, because when Rodriguez movies are supposed to be coming out, I'm just blind and deaf to them until there's a trailer.
Right. Last I checked, IMDb has Sin City 3 coming out before Sin City 2.
Absolutely. Still the case. Yeah, so you can never be too certain with this stuff. I just wait for it to show up in a theater. And even in the case of the fucking trailers, I mean, that's not even true, because Machete had a trailer before Machete really did exist. And you told me all the time, oh yeah, Machete's coming out, and I didn't fucking believe you.
Right. I didn't believe me.
But as he's doing press and talking about Predators and it's going to be awesome, he said, oh, I want to film it in Texas so I can just hop over to the soundstage at Troublemaker, which is basically his backyard, and just shoot a couple quick fun scenes. I think he said he wanted to, shoot the cool scenes, right? So, of course, he doesn't get the director credit. Right. And there could be all sorts of weird reasons behind that. But
it would all be speculation at this point.
Yeah, we just don't know. He's a producer, and he's definitely one of those producers that would get really, really involved in the work. Also, when you read any interviews or look up any stuff for it's all Robert Rodriguez's Predators.
Right.
Despite the fact he is just a producer.
Right.
He talks that thing up in a way that, Quentin Tarantino didn't quite talk up Hellride or Hostel. You know what I mean? He appears places to really say, this film is great.
His name is attached, and he's proud that his name is attached.
But he's not talking about when they made it, this was their intention.
Right.
Now, I wanted to talk about all this stuff because I know back when we covered Machete, we just sidelined all this. We said there's some confusion. We don't know what was going on. But I was looking through the archive of all of the film information, the cameras they were using, and the production dates and all that stuff. And it looks like that they wrapped the final production on Machete the week that Predators actually started.
Okay.
So I always assumed these were sort of filmed simultaneously.
Yeah, me too.
But it looks like they wrapped shooting on Machete, and then, 4 days later or something, started shooting on Predators.
Kept Danny Trejo busy.
Yeah, they really did, didn't they? Danny Trejo is just the busiest fucking guy. Danny Trejo is really the answer to that question we were searching for, who has appeared the most on the show.
I think it's pretty close.
I think Danny Trejo is the non-slasher
guy.
The
non-cheat.
So I don't know if that makes it, easier or more difficult to determine what Rodriguez did. I actually haven't heard the commentary. I haven't heard it for this or Machete.
Okay.
Because they both came out in the era of, digital stuff instead of I went out and bought the DVD stuff.
Right.
So those are, kind of rainy day, keep in the back pocket when life is awful. Just turn on the commentary I have these two wonderful things that I can enjoy. And then, Dan Zimmerman, he was the editor on Spy Kids 4 and also, strangely, the editor on Alien vs. Predator Requiem.
Huh.
So that complicates things too. Wow. So he's definitely in that Rodriguez camp, but that doesn't mean anything because it was Troublemaker. So I have no idea. Here's what I do want to add to this Predators conversation.
Okay.
Everybody in this movie appears to have a specialty.
Yeah, we're kind of going back to the previous film on today's show where you're thrust into an environment full of people you don't fucking know.
So rather than everyone rolling their eyes at this,
right,
I kind of feel like we should maybe defend I don't know if you feel the same way.
I saw this in the theater. We both saw it separate theaters midnight when it came out.
Right.
You said you had some hang up where it seemed like everybody was a stereotypical, this guy fills the Yakuza role, this guy fills the white trash prisoner role. And I totally see that, but it didn't bother me. I think it's because of the fact that you just have to do that.
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily say it bothered me.
Right,
it was
you
just
noticed
that
it.
It was the conversation that I was having with the group of people.
Right.
This was the first Showplace Icon movie I'd went to, and we were floored by that, and we talked for a long time. And that was one of the things that was kind of brought up, that, it was just quick and easy backstories, and that was kind of cheesy, and I didn't really know what to say about that.
Yeah.
But watching it with 12 Angry Men totally brought that into a new light.
Sure. Well, if you're put in a situation like that, you need to have characters that people can latch onto understanding faster than you kill them off.
Well, I don't even know if that's so much writing as it is. That's just what happens when none of the characters know each other.
Sure.
I don't know that these characters are any more cookie cutter than any other characters. Right. It just, look back to 12 Angry Men and think, all right, here's a movie that no one's basically going to bash the writing of 12 Angry Men anywhere in the community of filmmaking or film watching.
Right.
You would be hard pressed to find somebody to say, 12 Angry Men, all those characters are so cookie cutter. However, you have the old guy and you have the sports guy, and we went through all the goddamn characters. Right. You can say this guy and that guy. When the characters don't really know each other and they're thrown into a situation like Predators, they talk about two things. They talk about their situation and how to get out of it, and they give small details about their background
as it applies to the situation.
There you go. So this is just something that, normally you see it a bit in films because you don't know the characters, but here you see it tenfold because the characters don't know each other either.
Right. Well, and none of them are the type of people. They're all, various forms of predators, right? They're all these killers, these fighters, these soldiers. None of them are going to hang out with another killer, fighter, soldier and talk about, back home, man, I got all the... except for maybe the fucking criminal.
Yeah.
Because that's all he ever does, is sits around and talks about his life before he went to jail and how his sister has big tits.
Yeah, it goes as far as, us actually projecting ideas onto the characters that aren't even necessarily there. Look at Hamster Plant guy.
Right.
Topher Grace's character. Can't get away from these hamster styles, by the way.
It's becoming a natural association to film.
So you get the impression Topher Grace is the team medic.
He's the medic.
You look at that guy, he must be the medic.
He doesn't have a gun. He's the medic.
You've been playing too much Team Fortress.
Yep.
I don't know what it is. Explain to me, all right, what indicates that he's the medic? You first see the guy, you look at him, you go, all right, that guy must be the doctor in the group.
Well, I think glasses. He's wearing glasses.
Okay. But what does he say?
He says, help, I'm up here. Can somebody shoot me down? I'm stuck in a tree.
Right, so not a lot of indication.
Right, then he falls down and he doesn't do anything. He has no idea why he's there. He doesn't have guns. He walks around, he's confused, and then he pulls out a Scoople.
Yeah, so maybe I'm getting a little bit of a Serenity vibe.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're getting a little bit of a May vibe. I don't know. But this seems really universal. Everybody I've talked to
me too.
Thinks this guy is the medic.
This is the team medic. That explains why he's there. No need to figure out whether or not he's a killer, because he's clearly just the medic.
Yeah, well, even the fucking characters just assume, I don't know what that guy's up to. Maybe he's the medic. And later, the fact that he has a scalpel and the fact that he knows some biology stuff or whatever, that might lead you to indicate that, but I think that's more people projecting their, oh, this is going to be one of those movies where everybody has a thing.
Exactly.
If I could continue just making calls for how creative and original and well-written these characters are.
We're not going to get enough of it in here, so you might as well.
I want to talk specifically about Adrien Brody.
Okay.
Just as a casting choice.
Adrien Brody being Royce, being possibly one of the best casting decisions of 2010.
Oh my God. So I think the idea when they cast him was, you're making a movie that's a sequel to a classic.
Sure.
Predator.
Yeah,
and
you're making a sequel to Schwarzenegger.
Right. There's been a ton of Predator movies that all fall in that good old Rotten Tomatoes under 15%
3-point scale.
I mean, honestly, they're probably about 20-something%. I mean, I'm sure they have handfuls of fans. We did them on the show, but none of these were considered truly great the way that Predator was. And so when they made the sequel, not reboot, sequel, they wanted to kind of use that reboot feeling. They wanted to make it something separate to get that new audience into it, but they also wanted to make it something original that would stand next to the classic, not on top of the classic.
For sure.
And so they were faced with this decision. You cast another Arnold Schwarzenegger and everybody compares him to the original. And of course, everybody says what? They say not as good as Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's inevitable. You cannot beat something. It's been over 20 years, right? Yeah. Once a film has taken 20 years, it's too classic for you to ever actually beat it. The best you can do is
emulate it, really.
Good, but different.
Yeah, because if you're a separate movie, there's a separate point of comparison.
Yep.
So before we talk about that casting call, I kind of feel like this plan succeeded.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I didn't hear a lot of,
I've never heard
this is better / worse than Predator. Nope. No one really said that.
No.
Everybody was having these unique conversations about this movie specifically.
Right.
So genius plan. And I feel like this is a big part of it. So they want to cast somebody who looks different than Arnold. We're going to do a completely different thing than Arnold. And so they pick a scrawnier guy. They pick a character-driven guy. They pick Adrien Brody. What Adrien apparently loves about this role, I was reading this great interview where he's talking all about this. He's basically saying Arnold Schwarzenegger was the 80s idea of a soldier. He was the action hero. Sure. Adrien Brody, and while he didn't credit himself for defining this, I think he very well may, he is our modern soldier.
Yeah.
He is the true, version of what a soldier looks like, or at least looks like today. I love the fantasy view that in the 80s, everybody in the military looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Looked like Duke Nukem.
I assume that's probably not the case, but whatever. I have no evidence, so fine, that's okay. But today, it's 18-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. It's honestly kind of people who look like us.
Sure.
People who look like us that do, slightly more physical labor.
Right. Slightly a lot more.
That have muscles in their body, right? But they're not these giants, they aren't built like fucking tanks.
Sure.
They're thin guys that have a lot of battle experience, that are, smart on a battlefield, and that is who Adrien Brody's character is.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like. He looks like a muscular but normal human being.
Sure.
He's not the kind of guy who's going to plow down everybody in the jungle. And that's probably one of the smartest decisions this movie makes.
Yeah.
But I also feel like having Topher Grace be, both the comic relief and the foil is a great decision.
Yeah.
Because the whole time, again, your brain's doing that stupid thing where you go, this is the guy with the Gatling gun. And this is the guy, he's the leader, and here's the badass chick who can fend for herself, but blah, 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 blah.
3 red shirts, and that's it.
Here's the Mexican who's in all those other great films. No one's thinking that. They should be. They're not. And you get to that character, and you say, here is the comic relief.
Right, and you root for him to live, because that's what you do with the comic relief, is you hate to see the comic relief die, and then when he gets to the point where he turns... You wish you had just left him behind in that fucking trap.
Yeah, you do.
You wish he had died every time they went back to save him and brought him with instead.
I mean, what an incredible decision. You make it the very character that, first of all, you don't suspect because he's the comic relief.
And he's the medic.
Yeah, so you feel stupid, too, because you thought he was the medic and the comic relief. And he's the fucking guy who you were rooting for to live. And now you feel like a jerk. You feel betrayed. You hate him even more.
Right. Which is why it's so nice to just... That's one of the best payoffs in the film when Royce shoves the scalpel up his jaw and says, but I'm fast, and then ties a bunch of grenades to him.
Yes.
Love it.
You mean after he explodes in the spaceship, but doesn't
Right.
explode in the spaceship?
Yeah.
That was a great moment, too. I was just expecting that. That was one of those things where I think the filmmakers know what people are expecting.
Sure.
The spaceship blows up, and I'm thinking, I'm actually buying it because that's just how this movie might end.
Right.
It's just going to explode a spaceship, and that's going to be your main character.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck.
But what it does do, if not kill the main character, is give you the glorious feeling at the end of, hey, we won and we're totally fucked anyway.
Right. You are still fucked.
Yeah.
It still got rid of the ship. It can get a little bit better at the ending, but
Mhm.
you're still fucked.
And I think one of the smartest things that Predators did is that instead of doing, we haven't done the Star Trek film, but that did it very well too.
The new one?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instead of doing a thing where they risk destroying the old canon of this is how the Predator was in the first film, they go, well, similar Predators,
Yeah,
but
right.
there's different blood feud. They're bigger, they have different weapons. It's not the same Predators, so
Sure.
they don't operate the same,
Sure.
so we're not trampling on your idea of the Predator from the
Right.
first film. These Predators have dogs, they're bigger, they're meaner, they wear jawbones. It's a beautiful device to avoid stepping on the toes of the other laws that have been created.
What also makes itself more important,
Right.
right? Because it's their planet.
Yeah.
So suddenly all that other shit, that was just one-off people who flew their dinky ship to
Yep.
Earth.
My bad.
None of that shit matters. This is the real stuff right here.
Mhm.
This is the planet. And Lawrence Fishburne. I don't know how we didn't talk about Lawrence Fishburne in this
Yeah.
movie either, but crazy.
Yeah.
Fucking
And he's
crazy.
really good at being crazy. Are
Yeah,
you
he
talking
is.
about his character or the fact that he looks nothing like Morpheus?
Crazy. So crazy. You know, and I don't want to go without saying how creative the movie is effects-wise.
Yeah.
Or just in the moments that it's constructing for
Samurais.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, how brutal, how well done those specific moments
Sure.
really are.
They
You know,
become iconic the first time you see them.
The
It's
first
not the
fucking
kind
time.
of thing where you look back on it and think, oh, the samurai moment, that was iconic. I remember in the theater, they're in a field of grass.
Sure.
The Yakuza turns around, and I'm immediately going, this is that moment.
Yeah, the crowd knows it too. It's those crowd-pleasing moments. It's that Trejo trap that was so
Right.
great. Or the skull and the spine pull.
Right.
Right?
Sure.
The timing and pacing of those kind of different moments or the reveals, they're on the planet. You know, the camera sees the skull, they're on the planet, they get the smaller creatures, they go to that kind of gross bloody pit thing where one of them is tied up, and you know, they see the empty cages. Those things are all laid out instead of the random order I'm trying to recall them in my head. They're laid out in this just incredible order to reveal one thing after another,
Sure.
to make it more buyable, and then just to make, I mean, you have the skull and spine pull, and you think when that happens, that will be the most badass thing. But that scene
Sure.
is followed immediately by the sword fight.
Right.
Immediately. You have everybody in the theater screaming and applauding, and then the sword fight, and you know by the first frame.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna be an artsy fucking great,
Right.
you know, one-off scene.
And if you're more an action buff, then you get the fucking Royce with the axe running through the fire to
Right.
you know, call back to the first film.
Right.
Just that whole fucking scene is one of the most triumphantly violent scenes in the movie.
Well, and so you have the Predator decapitation,
Sure.
where he just slices the head clean off. And, you know, they cut to the wide shot, and it lets out, the other Predator lets out this kind of huge growl, right? Which is, I mean, it's so easy for that shot to feel corny. I've never
Sure.
really seen the I'm a badass shot feel triumphant the way it does here.
Right.
Where you're actually a little bit scared.
Right.
Like, not super scared,
That's
but
the
a
point
little
where
bit
you go,
scared of
this
it.
is probably over in the
Yeah.
wrong way.
Yeah, they're fucked.
Yeah.
But then you do get a final shot of Royce beating the fucking Predator to death before the next slice. It's their way of one-upping that decapitation
Sure.
scene. What would have been one of the most badass scenes, I guess still is one of
Sure.
the most badass scenes.
Well, so is every third scene in the film.
Yeah, right. Well, seeing that next slice and then it falls back and you're just waiting for the blood to just squirt out a tiny bit. Looks like you've got some green on you. So everybody knows the website. The website is doublefeatureshow.com. You
Yep.
can look up, a history of all of the Killapaloozas we've done by clicking on that Killapalooza button.
Holy shit.
That's going to become important in about 5 seconds. The other thing is doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. I'd love for people to email us their initial reactions to Predators.
Or their thoughts on this pair, if you actually went ahead and watched them.
Right. If they feel like this pair, if 12 Angry Men, first of all, legitimized the writing in Predators a little bit more, because I think it makes it a little better. But also...
if they got it.
Yeah, if they got it. If it wasn't just Tank Girl and Schindler's List, but instead if this kind of made a little sense to you. It's simultaneously one of our most embarrassing, but also best double feature pairings.
Yeah.
Does both at once. Next time on the show, we have a Killapalooza.
We're gonna do some Killapalooza number 14. So this is probably one of our weirdest Killapaloozas, and we probably say that every time.
Yeah.
But we've done the director. This is Don Coscarelli, who is Bubba Hotep.
Yeah. Well,
And-
he's not Bubba Hotep. He made Bubba Hotep.
He made Bubba Hotep,
Important
but-
distinction. Very important distinction.
But he sticks through all 4 of the Phantasm films.
Another short one, too, so people have no excuse not to watch terrible movies.
But we're gonna cover all 4 Phantasm films, the exploits of the Thin Man and the Spiky Bleedy Balls.
And we don't know. They might be great movies.
All right, watch more fucking film.
Bye. That's not it at all. That is the movie we're doing. Probably the last thing that might come to your mind, but not on this goddamn show. These are 2 films that have obvious, stark differences, but probably have a lot more in common than you might think.
Oh, yeah.
And we're hoping here, and this is ultimately my idea, and you can kind of let me know what you think about this.
Okay.
I'm hoping we do this once in a while. We trick people into watching movies by putting one film they really like and then promising them that they would like this other film, even if that's not true.
I think we do that a lot of the time. I know that a lot of the time when we put films in order on the show, we always put the one everybody's seen first to try to trick people into having to watch the second one.
I don't know if that's even the case this time. I think it's
it's not this time.
I think it's a kind of a mix. I think some people have seen 12 Angry Men, some people have seen Predators, but we have a very, very high number of people who have not seen both of those movies. And we wanted to do 12 Angry Men for quite a bit of time, and we tried to pair it with other things. And to be honest with you, I thought all of our potential pairs made too much sense.
Yeah.
It always seemed like one of those things where we kind of go, is this too obvious?
Right.
Can we really do 12 Angry Men and something blah blah crime, something with juries, something?
Yeah.
And it just seems too obvious.
And too little to really cover because we would just say the same thing twice.
So we have some chapters if you decide you don't want to see both of the movies. There is kind of a heavy theme of, I don't know, some kind of team-centric idea that we're going to delve into a little bit in both of the movies. But if we can't talk you into seeing 12 Angry Men, a great film, you can chapter over to Predators. And had you not seen the other Predator films, or at least the first one, I guess, or you just don't believe that Predators is a great film,
which it is,
you can then chapter to the end of the show. Now, really quick, before we get into the first movie, what's going on with all this Predator stuff?
We covered all the Predator films when we did Killapalooza 19. And
it wasn't 19. We're not quite there yet. Voted, have you?
That's not true. I have voted.
You have voted. I don't know if voting in juries, if that is actually
I think
how you get selected.
When you sign up for
just
selective service is when...
Selective service?
Yeah, when you turn 18, you have to sign up for something about being in the army.
Oh, yeah, right. That, too. We have no idea how you get on a jury. If you have facts about that...
Have you served on a jury?
I haven't,
Okay.
no.
Just want to make sure that was covered.
Doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. We want facts, not you heard one time that if you vote, you'll get picked for a jury. But a lot of people, especially in the United States... they fear jury duty. They hate jury duty. That's kind of the old joke, how do you get out of jury duty? I guess the joke would be literally any sentence that follows that.
Right.
And you can say just about anything to get out of jury duty. Many of the things we proclaim all the time, there is no God.
Sure.
Or perhaps science-based skepticism, requiring facts, being pacifist, not believing in the death penalty. I mean, all of these things.
Pretty much Double Feature stands to reason as to why we probably will never serve on a jury.
I host
At least
Double
not in the
Feature.
next 10 years.
Would be.
I host, also I listen to Double Feature.
I listen to Double Feature, right. So all things to get you out of it.
Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
Today we have a double feature in line with really one of the greats in the Hall of Fame.
I think so.
Something like Tank Girl and Schindler's List, I think.
Something like that.
We're bordering on that territory.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the names responsible for that double feature are myself,
Right.
Eric Ingram, and Michael Armagoddamn motherfucking Kester.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have some explaining to do, maybe a little bit.
We do. I think the first step of explaining would be revealing the films.
Yes. So there's two movies. The first one is 12 Angry Men.
Okay.
The second one is naturally what you
First
would...
thing that comes to mind when you think 12 Angry Men.
Predators, I think, is probably... No.
Okay. Well,
Oh, man, and we're going to have a Killapalooza next time.
that's true.
People are going to be chaptering away right now.
But we covered all the Predator movies. Suffice to say, Predator is an alien that hunts people. We're not going to go into detail.
That's really all you need. I think you could see the new Predator movie. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
wouldn't
Completely
even,
independent.
I don't think it would harm anything in the original one whatsoever. But if you'd rather just cheat, as so many people do, and just listen to our show as if it's some kind of substitute for watching movies, which, believe you me, it is not, then you could go back to the Alien vs. Predator Killapalooza, which did not actually become a slasher franchise until, the last three movies of those, that whole set. So, 12 Angry Men is a movie that should probably get paired with The Man from Earth and not with Predators.
So, yeah, absolutely.
But goddamn it, it's going with Predators right now.
Yeah.
This is a movie that explores something that's very interesting to me, which is jury duty.
Okay.
The
I thought
idea
you were going to say Henry Fonda.
which is Henry Fonda
That's mine.
conducting jury duty.
Perfect.
Yes, you've never been on a jury, right?
I have not.
You've never